Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to webmaster and producer Keith Rowland. And my special guest this evening is Matty Beckerman. Matty Beckerman has made his directorial debut with Alien Abduction, a sci-fi thriller based on the legend of the Brown Mountain Lights. And this film was released in theaters in April this year. Previously, Beckerman was the founder and CEO of Natural Selection, a privately held, equity-backed motion picture company based in Los Angeles. He has executive produced The Experiment. Prior to Natural Selection, Mr. Beckerman has served as the general manager of Bulletproof Recording Company Incorporated, a leading film, soundtrack, and music supervision company. He also founded Now or Never Records Incorporated, an independent record label with distribution through Warner Brothers and ADA. The label signed over 25 acts that toured worldwide, and Beckerman directed several music videos all over the country for his acts. He successfully sold the company in 2003 to the leading German multinational entertainment company, Century Media, distributed by EMI. Mr. Beckerman attended the A.B. Freeman School of Business at Tulane University, where he obtained his bachelor's degree in management and information systems with a minor in photography. He is a member of the Directors Guild of America, and his websites are alienabductionfilm.com and mattybeckerman.com. And please welcome Matty to the show this evening. And Matty, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And I want to hear all about the film. And insofar as I know it was released in April, so how's it doing?
I mean, we're just doing amazing. It's like the little engine that could.
Excellent.
You know, we're an independent film production, so we got picked up by IFC, and we are either their top seller or one of their top selling films.
Excellent.
Which is amazing to hear. I guess there's a lot of interest in this specific phenomenon, the Brown Mountain Lights.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you can elaborate a little bit on the Brown Mountain Lights. I know that insofar as the storyline itself goes, how did you get involved in this, and what attracted you to that?
You know, my family have lived in the area of North Carolina in the Boone, Banner Elk area, and since the 1970s. And I used to go visit my grandparents up there, and I would constantly hear these stories of the Brown Mountain Lights. And it was always interesting to me, and I started researching it. And then I worked up there for a couple years with my family. And I met a man who worked with me who claimed he had been abducted after seeing the lights. And I really did not believe him. I was so skeptical because he had multiple encounters. He would be abducted, on a regular basis, and it was just outrageous, his story. But then I started talking to other people, police officers, school teachers, really very normal, salt of the earth people. And they also had abduction stories. And that's what kind of turned me from being really skeptical about this to saying, oh my God, something real is happening here.
Mm-hmm. And then you actually documented a lot of this. So the film itself, it's definitely based on, the storyline is truth-based, right? Just a little bit more elaborated through Hollywood, or how's that go?
Yeah, it's a true story that we fictionalize.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the opening of the film is documentary footage. It's all real. We interview people like Joshua P. Warren, who's a pretty famous paranormal researcher.
Mm-hmm.
We interview Daniel Caton, who is the professor of physics and astronomy at Appalachian State University, and is one of the leading experts on the Brown Mountain Lights phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also interview locals who both have seen the lights their entire life and people who claim they've been abducted. So we start the film out with a lot of fact and a lot of, the real story.
Mm-hmm. And when these people were taken, were they actually physically taken, or was it more of an internal journey through the mind's eye?
No, these were physical things that have happened to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Well, I know there's some old legends with the Native Americans as well. I think it was the Cherokee that talks about the spirits of the mountains and things. I mean, this was obviously recorded a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it dates back. The Brown Mountain Lights date back over 800 years to the Cherokee, the Cherokee Native Americans and the Catawba. And the first known Western, I think, reporting of it was George Washington's men. It predates electricity. It's been a reoccurring phenomenon. And the Cherokee, the legend starts where a large group of men are in a battle, and they go missing. Their women go looking for them, and they also go and disappear. And, some of the legends say that the lights are the spirits of these Native Americans who are wandering the woods. But this same storyline gets repeated throughout history. And it is constantly where a large group of people are in the area, they see the Brown Mountain Lights, and they go missing.
That's wild. Do they ever come back, or?
Some do, and some don't.
And that's very, very interesting. So the ones that come back, what is their story?
There was a guy named Ralph Lale who was a bit of an eccentric guy. He had a gem and a stone shop on Brown Mountain. And he would pack a lunch and walk into the woods and say goodbye with just, the clothes on his back and a lunch. And he would tell people he was going to visit his extraterrestrial friends from Brown Mountain. And he would disappear for weeks at a time. And then come back. And Ralph had this wild story that he had actually been given a gift of an extraterrestrial body, and you could go to Ralph and he would invite you in the back of his store, and he had the body there. And there's pictures of it. Actually, JoshuaPWarren.com. If you check out his website, he's got an actual picture of this body. And Ralph died, and his shop was bulldozed to the ground, and no one has ever seen what happened to that body. And, you use the term they when it comes to they bulldozed it, they came in. There's a ton of military activity up there. So, it's curious.
I was going to ask about that. So is there a military base close by?
There isn't a military base close by, but, the Brown Mountain Lights have been studied for, centuries now. And anytime you go up there with any type of equipment, measuring electromagnetics or any, light pulses, it's often likely that you will see black SUVs following you. And this has happened to a lot of people up there. So there is definitely a military presence. There's one couple in Morganton, North Carolina, which is the closest place to the Brown Mountain Lights, where an Army colonel approached them. They own a restaurant. And an Army colonel approached and said, I need 400 meals a day for 2 months. And they, of course, took the job. And they would drive to around the base of the national park that Brown Mountain Light sits on, deliver the meals to 2 MPs who would take it, and they only saw 3 people that entire 2-month period. So there's definitely heavy military activity going on there. Just don't know what it is.
Yeah. Oh, well, did you notice that when you were making the film?
I never saw it firsthand, the military activity, but I've heard story after story from the locals there.
That's really interesting. Well, yeah, they're always taking power spots. That's what I always tell people. So, where there's some kind of an anomaly, the military is close by usually.
Now, I did see the Brown Mountain Lights. I documented them. It's up on my website. If you go to mattybeckerman.com, I put a little blog up there. I went up there with my wife and a friend of mine who trained with the Caro Indians in Peru as a shaman. He's a really, really interesting guy. We sat up there and we saw probably 9 or 10 huge orbs. They were so bright. They were moving around rapidly. And I wasn't really prepared. I had just gone on a whim. and I got out my iPhone and I started trying to take pictures of them, and I could not capture them. But the pictures I did take are of my friend John, and there are orbs surrounding us, beams of light shooting out of him. And in one picture in particular, in this mist that came, you could see what looks like the face of an extraterrestrial.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's right on my site. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do suspect people would have already checked that out. If they haven't, go ahead and do that. But it sounds like there's almost a wormhole over there of some kind, maybe some kind of a. What do you think about that?
Yeah, people have used the term vortex.
Mm-hmm.
There's some energy that's there that has been there for a long time. It's ancient, and it is undeniable. I mean, thousands of people have seen this for hundreds of years. It is real.
Mm-hmm. It certainly sounds like it. I'd like to go check it out myself. And what did you feel when you were there physically? I mean, did it make you feel better, or what were the symptoms, or do you get sick, or around the frequency?
People experience dizziness and feeling like they're almost in a dreamlike state when they're there. And that was something that I definitely experienced. That there was a ton of energy going on there. I wasn't dizzy, I wasn't like that, but I felt connected on a different level. I can't even explain it beyond that.
It sounds like it's doing something to alter the frequency of the person it's coming into contact with. I find it very fascinating. What did the physicists have to say about the area? Did they were they able to identify any type of anomaly that was more concrete?
Yeah, National Geographic took a whole crew up there, and what they discovered was whenever the real Brown Mountain Lights were seen, there was electromagnetic interference that would cause disruptions in electrical equipment. And they were able to measure this similar to like a lightning strike. And what's interesting is when people report UFOs, you often have electromagnetic interference correlated to that. It's either just a hot spot, but the abduction stories are what really have captivated me beyond just an interesting orb you see.
Right, because it's more than visual. So when these people get abducted, is there a telepathic communication or an identifiable extraterrestrial?
People have claimed they've seen mainly the grays, and it's not really a telepathic connection. There's a time loss that keeps happening there. This one woman I interviewed, what she said happened to her was that she had gone with a big group to see the lights. She went to the overlook. By the way, there's overlooks that are clearly marked in 3 different locations on the sides of major highways in the area. So this isn't like something you have to trek to find. They're there. So she went with a big group and witnessed the Brown Mountain Lights. She came home, and as she was walking into her bedroom, she was physically sucked up against the ceiling of her bedroom. And she suddenly woke up in her bed, and her husband jumps out of bed next to her and says, "Oh my God, I just had the worst nightmare. I was sucked up against the ceiling of our house." And them both realizing they had the same dream, their daughter comes running in and says, "Mom, Dad, where have you been for the last day and a half? We've been looking everywhere for you."
Wow.
These types of stories are repeated from people. And it's definitely, there's certainly a time loss and a time loss scenario that keeps happening over and over.
Certainly sounds like it. Now, is there a window when the energy is stronger, like insofar as decades go or years? Have you noticed that it's increased or has it decreased?
It's time of year, people say. People say they can see it easier in like October, November, and even September. But it happens year round. There's no correlation really to anything. People send me pictures all the time. People talk about it to me all the time. Tell me what's happening there.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And do you know if it's been a mining area?
This area is so steep and so impossible to get any equipment into. It is not a mining area.
Okay, because some anomalies, I'm sure you're familiar with the anomalies associated with mining, that sometimes with the gases and things like that. But yeah, that's really interesting. I always try to break it down to science, but sometimes you just can't. You can't just stay in the scientific realm. You've got to go beyond those boundaries and look on a higher level.
Yeah, I mean the professor of physics and astronomy at Appalachian State said, the best thing he could possibly think it could be was ball lightning. And that was his theory, was that it was ball lightning. And he went and set cameras up to stream live images of Brown Mountain 24/7.
Oh, wow.
And he had caught over 100 of them. So I said, at some point, you're not going to see 100 occurrences of ball lightning. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't happen. And that doesn't explain, the people who have seen this, not just across a valley, but 10 feet away from them in a parking lot. Mm-hmm. And then it chases them down the highway or moves around trees as if it has an intelligence to it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's intelligently controlled to some extent. That's very fascinating. And how long were you out there to shoot this film?
We shot at the real locations, right where the real lights are seen. And we were there for about 3 months.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah, it was terrific. It was an amazing time. I mean, it's a beautiful area. I really believe that the Brown Mountain Lights are bigger than Roswell. I think it's bigger than Area 51 because anyone can actually just go there and see the lights for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And have you noticed or have you heard anything through these interviewing people if there's anything associated with a directed energy weapon at all? Some of these... nothing.
Joshua Warren had a theory that if the military was going there to study a phenomenon, that if the Brown Mountain Lights were a plasma-based energy like ball lightning, mm-hmm. that the military would absolutely want to study that in order to use it for weapons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, weaponize it for sure. Mm-hmm. That's what, it just comes to mind anyway. I could go on about that. Never mind. We're going to switch gears for a second here. But I'm looking at all sorts of stuff at once, so just bear with me right here. But, for someone who wants to visit the area, now you say you can just visualize or you can just see it. You don't have to get night vision cameras or anything like that. It's right there.
Oh, it's right there.
Okay, so do you use night vision at all? Or you don't really?
I did. I went out there with some night vision gear and everything, and I went out there fully prepared. Mm-hmm. And of course, nothing showed up. As soon as I got there with a big group of crew and everything, nothing happens. But I go there with my shaman buddy, and then everything happens.
That's interesting. So did he set the intent or anything like that, or try to summon anything? He did.
He did, and he successfully did it. Mm-hmm. It was definitely an experience I will never forget.
Oh, it sounds like a great experience. Yeah,
it was awesome.
Very ceremonial on so many different levels. It sounds like it could be a very positive experience.
It was for me. I had an amazing experience there. I mean, mm-hmm. when I was there, he did a bunch of energy work, and he was, you could see it physically manifest around us, mm-hmm. In the form of orbs and beams of light shooting out of him. Mm-hmm. Which was, we didn't see it physically there, but, it showed up on my phone and my wife's phone.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I tend to think that sometimes people with psychological issues might attract the wrong frequency or may have a negative experience versus something more positive if they're spiritually enlightened. I don't know what your impression is of that.
I absolutely agree with you. And people have experiences on different levels. There's, mm-hmm. A guy like Ralph Lale, who said he was going to visit his extraterrestrial friends. I mean, he connected on a different level. Mm-hmm. And then there are some of the people who have just terrifying experiences, where they can't connect on that level. Mm-hmm. Personally, I've been meeting with a lot of people recently who who connect from, on the starseed level and have been regressed and understand that they, are put here on this planet for missions other than a benevolent mission rather than the malevolent mission.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. With especially with what's happening on the planet these days, and obviously it is attracting children, or no?
I mean, the starseed phenomenon. There was one. I did a forum called "Ask Me Anything" on Above Top Secret,
Mm-hmm.
and one woman wrote her story, and she was scared. She said her child had these horrible nightmares every night. It was about 3 or 4 years old, and finally she broke down and said, "Fine, come sleep in the bed with me." And she woke up at, I guess it was 3 or 4 in the morning, and there was what looked like a light in bed with her, on top of her child. She completely freaked out, and she was writing to me, of all people, to ask me what my opinion on it was. And I said, "I think you should look into this. Your child is probably a starseed, a reincarnation of." I know I sound crazy saying this.
No, not at all. You should hear the rest of my shows. I talk about star seeds rather, and a lot of other things. But yeah, go ahead.
Cool. But my suggestion was to her that she connect with these groups who were really connected on that level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. Kids. I read this great book recently. It's about childhood reincarnation and the ability of a child at around 3 or 4 years old. They sometimes remember their past life experiences. And that's what I think could have been happening in that situation, was that this child was still connected to his alien roots.
Mm-hmm. Oh, highly possible, no doubt. Are you familiar with Mary Rodwell? She works with starseeds a lot and does a lot of regression.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what comes to mind when I think about the children. But I was wondering if they were being taken over there. And I know that some people have disappeared, and I'm wondering if they were going after children. So it was.
In Brown Mountain, no, not specifically.
That's good.
I think it's a different breed. Just like humanity, there are different races and different types of extraterrestrials who have different agendas.
Right. Yeah. Different species, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. So have you experienced the missing time?
Me personally, no.
Okay. I know a lot of people have, though. Excuse me. So the people that have missed time, have you interviewed a lot of those people?
Yeah. The most compelling interview I did was with a police officer, a sheriff locally.
Hmm.
And it was a great interview. He told me this story about driving up to the overpass, the overlook, and witnessing a large 8-foot orb come directly over the top of his car. He then sped off, and the orb followed him for miles. And he was driving at high speeds. Finally, he woke up, and he was on the side of the highway, and it was 18 hours later.
That's very interesting.
He has no idea how he got there. Now, I interviewed him for the purpose of putting him in the film. And when I finished the interview, I didn't know what I was going to capture with him. He would not sign the release.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Matty, I appreciate being able to talk about this because I can't talk about it to anybody, but this will ruin my career and potentially get me fired, and I'd be ridiculed by the police, and I don't want this coming down on my family. I just said, I totally understand. We won't use it, but I'm happy you were able to tell me.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it's really sad that they can't express the truth without censorship or, that kind of a passive, I don't want to say bullying, but yeah, people do run into those problems in the professional arena. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's, you got to, not everyone's as open-minded as we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Well, you know what I see is more of an encroachment insofar as these anomalies go. It seems to me like it's pushing more and more against the mainstream, and eventually, I think people will have to get calibrated for the that which they don't normally see from day to day.
I agree with you entirely. I mean, these occurrences happen more and more frequently, where it just has become undeniable.
Oh yeah, there's definitely something. Go ahead.
I was having this great conversation with Jim Marrs, who's the author of Alien Agenda, and the opening of his book says, let's just put aside any skepticism that UFOs don't exist. They do exist. They are absolutely real. Now let's go back and look through the history of what has actually happened on this planet. And it's just a fact that UFOs exist. And if you look at Kepler, of the discovery they just made, of a planet in the habitable zone, which means it had liquid water, and that's one of billions of planets that are in habitable areas outside of their suns, that we can't be so arrogant and naive to think that we're alone in this universe.
Exactly. Yeah, they're our star family. I tell people that all the time. I mean, that's what we are. We're star beings in a matrix. I mean, we exist on this world. But yeah, those are our ancestors to some degree. So
yeah,
it's really interesting. What's interesting, is the fact that so much censorship has happened to a point where people have to kind of recalibrate and look into the past on a different parallax view, so to speak, because there's so much out there that's been censored throughout history. So you're really looking at his story, her story, or version of truth, when in fact we really have to dig deeper. So that's the biggest mission I think we all have here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a lot of organized religion has covered up significant things based on heresy, based on it not fitting into their moral compass.
Right, yeah. That's the thread in the fabric, without a doubt. It's all about control. And
there becomes a huge censorship there. I mean, this movie, look, I came into making this film really just as a conduit to create a fun, fictional film. But it's really changed my perspective completely. Getting into this and really understanding this is real. These things do happen. And I'm much more open-minded having finished this film than when I started.
Oh, that's great. And I'm sure people who watch the film will be open-minded as well.
Yeah.
They'll probably open up their minds to a higher level.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, it's more, obviously you kind of geared it towards maybe entertainment, but not necessarily, because it is a storyline. I mean, there is a storyline in there that has some truth to it.
Yeah.
So
it's a fun thriller of a film. It's not some eye-opening, enlightening movie by that standard, but it is a ton of fun.
Yeah. That sounds like it. And also, I haven't seen many movies or any movies out on this topic, actually.
Yeah.
You're one of the first people that have actually approached it like that.
Cool.
Which is very good. Yeah.
So
what year do you think these abductions started? I know you were talking that it's gone back for a very long time, but when did you really start keeping record, or when did you notice that there were higher accounts of abductions taking place in that area?
In 1914, the first newspaper article in Charlotte, North Carolina came out talking about the lights. And right around, the turn of the 1800s, there's a folk song called the Brown Mountain Lights. And in that song talks about a plantation owner who goes hunting, and he disappears on Brown Mountain. His slaves go out looking for him, a large group of them, and they also go missing. And this is in the folk song. And it's probably one of the more famous songs in bluegrass. It's done by people from Roy Orbison to John Wiseman, who actually wrote the original song.
Nice.
So this is repeated throughout history of people going missing after seeing the lights.
Wow. That's really interesting. Well, it sounds like there's some kind of a dimensional portal there, like what we were talking about earlier. And I did notice, I did a little bit of research on it, but some people were talking about how the mountains emit nitrous vapors, which are borne by the wind, and when laden winds meet each other, this ignites or something like that to that effect. But I'm wondering what your take is on that. I mean, that sounds like an okay explanation. However, it doesn't explain the experiences people are having in the inductions or abductions that are taking place.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of scientists that whatever their field of study is, they find it there.
Right. Yeah. Very true.
If they're a geologist, they're going to find some kind of underground phenomenon that's making it happen. If they're a physicist, they're going to find something in that realm. But the stories that constantly come out of there, just of the intelligence of these lights, and they're moving and they're chasing people.
That's interesting.
It just doesn't seem plausible that it could just be some natural phenomenon.
So when they're chasing people, is it to harm them? Is it to magnetize their energy field? What is it doing exactly?
I don't know. I don't have an explanation for it. I mean, I know that when I was there, it felt like a spiritual connection. Like I was, it was calming, it was peaceful, it was beautiful, and it felt great. Yeah. Other people have run from it and been in fear. And there's actually one story of a big group of people and one guy walking right up to one of the lights and sticking his arm in it and touching it. And there was about probably 15 people at the overlook, and one of the lights came up, and everyone started running the other direction. And instead of running, he got out, walked right up to it, and touched it. And there's two stories. There's one that came from himself, and the other story came from the crowd of people who actually witnessed this. His experience was that for 4 seconds, he felt like he put his finger in an electrical socket. And the group around him said that for over 10 minutes, he was stiff as a board with his arm out in the light, and people were terrified to walk up to him.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So there's definitely a time jump.
Yeah, I was going to say it almost put him in a stasis, didn't it?
Yeah.
That's like another dimensional shift or something.
It could be,
Wow.
Some of the theories of space travel, of course, are like you're talking about wormholes and time manipulation in order to travel great distances, or even dimensional manipulation.
Wow. I think
so that's why it makes me think this.
Yeah, no, it's just incredible. I love hearing about this. Well, I love science anyway, and I love mysticism, so put the two together and you have something cool like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice little blend there. But yeah, it seems to me like it would be a frequency-based transmission, but yet there's the electricity involved. So wow, that's fantastic. Did you incorporate that into the movie?
Not that story specifically, because I actually heard this story after I made the movie.
Oh gosh.
It's so cool because making this film, all of these stories are coming to me now. Things that I would never have imagined. And I wish I would have had them before, because I could have incorporated more.
Right.
But the main story of the movie is based on a family. This story is true, that go to the Overlook, and very similar to the police, a light came up and chased them down the highway. And that was what this movie is based on.
It's almost as if some people are getting chased off and other people are being received.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting. Are you going to do a sequel?
I'm talking about it right now, and working on the storyline to it. And it's fascinating because as these stories roll in, I have so much material to build from. And this is not the only place where these lights like this are seen around the world. You talk about Min Min in Australia, and the Marfa lights in Texas, and the Hestelin lights in Norway. There's even a mountain in China where, for thousands of years, people have claimed to see extraterrestrials and abductions. And I think these are vortexes. These are hotspots.
That's what it sounds like.
That are bringing the phenomenon out.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if they're over ley lines or not. Have you looked into that at all?
I haven't, but I will.
I was going to say, yeah, I bet you. Well, you never know. I'm going to have to do some more hunting too. If I come up with anything, I'll send you an email.
You should go check it out.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
worth going.
Yeah, if I don't get chased off by the black helicopters or whatever. But so Joshua P. Warren was obviously in the film, and he is great. And also, so he was out there checking it out. So he's usually working with the paranormal and the haunted things. So did he feel like it was in a haunted area or a cursed area of some kind?
His take is from a scientific approach.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to figure out what could physically be causing this in the environment. And he brought a bunch of equipment out there and was part of the National Geographic crew to study this. And they caught a bunch of the lights on camera and brought it to a NASA lab who were analyzing it. Mm-hmm. And they could not explain what it was. They had no explanation. Mm. And Joshua, is probably one of the foremost experts now, mm-hmm. Just having gone through study after study on it. And people keep on bringing stories to him. It's great to sit down with him and actually talk to him about it.
Yeah, he's very sharp, without a doubt. I have to get him on my show sometime. He's a good guy. Yeah. So I'm glad you guys collaborated on that one. So how large are these orbs?
They range from around 8 to 9 feet. Mm. And they move rapidly, really fast.
That's interesting. And there's no nobody understands what the power source is yet, or no?
No, I mean, okay. Project Blue Book, which of course is the U.S. Air Force founded in the 1950s to debunk UFO sightings, studied the Brown Mountain Lights. And it's one of the cases that still remain unexplained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, the lights have been studied at least 4 separate times by the U.S. government.
Well, they've come up with some kind of an answer that they probably won't disclose.
Yeah, it's nothing that we're privy to. That's for
right.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I figured as much. Well, sometimes NASA will just be a cover for a lot of other things as well, so you have to be careful with them. But yeah, and it seems to me like some people will just have to keep their mouth shut. I mean, even if they know what's going on, they can't offer the data.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Yeah.
I went to Morganton, North Carolina. We premiered the film there. Mm-hmm. And we were in front of about 700 local people to show them the film. And we had such an amazing reaction. I did a big Q&A afterwards. And one of the questions I asked the crowd, I said, how many people here have seen the Brown Mountain Lights? And I'm telling you, about 75% of that audience raised their hands.
Oh, wow.
They had all seen it. And I got my phone out and I asked the question again. So I said, just make sure I captured this moment. And I threw the video up on my website, alienabductionfilm.com.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you did that. Well, what's interesting is it seems to me like we need to have more credibility when it comes down to these type of anomalies. We need to have people out there actually, being respectful about it, because it is a real thing, and it's not something that's, an imaginary, obviously, anomaly. I mean, people are witnessing this, so it's something that I think people should have a little more respect for in the mainstream. But you never see it. You never see mainstream offering data like this.
Yeah, I mean, we had some very big producers get involved in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Who are mainstream producers, like Quentin Tarantino's producer.
Yeah.
Lawrence Bender, who did every movie with Quentin, from Pulp Fiction to Reservoir Dogs and Kill Bill. He was one of our producers on it. Mm-hmm. And then Mike Fleiss, who did Hostel and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Wow, what a switch, huh?
Yeah, a big, big change.
Yeah.
But we were lucky enough to get those guys involved, and that helped us to get this sort of on the mainstream level.
Right. Actually, it does take people like that to pull it in. It's unfortunate, but that really does happen. I mean, that's the only way it gets more and more views. and people paying attention insofar as what the bigger scenery is about. So I applaud you for that. And hopefully they'll start, tuning into these more serious events that are happening with abductions and inductions. There's so many people who are contactees in the world.
Yeah. I mean, this movie really, it does focus on the malevolent side of the alien abduction experience. Mm-hmm. But, I think in the future for me, I'd like to make a film that does focus on the benevolent side of things and the people who can connect on a telepathic level. And those experiences that people are having right now. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I think there's definitely something major happening across the board on this planet. Now we have the linear world and governments and this and that. And then you have something else going on a multidimensional level where I think it's really impacting each person from day to day, yet they're not really paying attention. But this stuff is in your face. I mean, it's like, how can you escape this sort of thing when it's right there in your backyard just about if you live close to the area?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. So it obviously has an electric charge to it. Did you notice the area itself has a strong electrical field?
It's almost impossible to get a cell signal there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Even when we were using our walkie-talkies, there's a disruption there. Okay. There's a normal electromagnetic weirdness going on there. I mean, it's the best way I could describe it because sometimes things would work, sometimes they wouldn't.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. And do you know if there's an ancient burial or medicine mound around that area?
They're all over that place.
They are? Okay.
It's a heavy Native American spot.
Right, yeah. And I'm wondering if they did a lot of sacred ceremony out there.
Yes, I'm sure there were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would explain a lot of the anomalies also. I mean, piggybacking off of the whatever's there, obviously, maybe they were attracted to the power spot to begin with, and then, of course, do their ceremony there. And that would enhance everything. So, well, I can speculate, but, it's very fascinating.
I mean, I believe you're right, because speculation aside, when we brought our shaman friend up there, that's when we really saw things. That's when we connected on a different level. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. I think there is something there.
It certainly sounds like it. Yeah, he sounds like he speaks the language. So it was good that you brought him up there.
Yeah. He was just a friend visiting set. We weren't planning on doing anything.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a nice little treat, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I'm going to have to get out there. Now I'm like, I've got to go check it out. Just to experience this is very interesting. So, we talked about the military a little bit. Do you think that they have a covert military operation going on, or you think it's more about monitoring and just doing some kind of experimentation, maybe measuring the plasma or whatever it is they think they're getting their hands on?
There's always this theory of underground bases. Mm-hmm. And there's a massive tunnel system that definitely goes through the Appalachian Mountains. Mm-hmm. And it connects all the way through to Kentucky. And that same national park, the Pisgah National Park, which is where the Brown Mountain Lights sit, is also connected to an area where they keep claiming there's an underground base. Mm. So, it really is possible that there is a heavy military presence there.
Mm-hmm. That certainly sounds like it. With this much activity that goes on, with all the anomalies, has anybody actually seen a real, a silvery kind of craft? I know they've seen the lights, but have they seen anything else?
Yeah, I mean, you get the classic kind of three-pointed triangle. That is the normal thing that people see when they see craft, and that is something that people report in the Brown Mountain area all the time.
Interesting. Is that the black triangle?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a red flag right there.
Yeah. It could be a stealth bomber, or it could be, the typical UFO sighting.
Right. So when you interviewed these people, how many people did you get to interview one-on-one?
As many as I possibly could. Offhand, probably like 30 or 40.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I tried to gather as much information and be as educated as possible going in to handle a topic like this. Mm-hmm. I think it's important because my family's from there.
Yeah.
I didn't want to embarrass them, and I didn't want to embarrass myself.
Well, what does your family say about this?
They're heavily involved in the community, mm-hmm. and the community has embraced this so much. They were very happy to have it.
That's great.
Yeah, it was cool.
Well, go ahead.
The director of tourism for Burke County actually brought us there and we did this large premiere in Morganton. So they were happy to have us.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. It makes me wonder if you guys aren't contactees from your lineage.
I'm sure that's true.
It would seem like it.
Yeah. I was regressed personally about 3 months ago. And stuff started coming up that I'm not completely comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to my world.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe what's coming out of my mouth. That, I definitely have some of that in me.
Well, that's very interesting. Do you recall, I don't want to pry too much, but I'm just curious, did you have any screen memories that you were aware of or missing time?
None of that in this lifetime, but I was connecting to past lives.
Oh, nice.
And what I got into there was, a past life when I wasn't on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's normal. I mean, for me and for beings I associate with, that's pretty normal.
Look, this was new to me. It freaked me out.
Well, that's great.
When you're fantasizing about this stuff for other people, when you're writing fiction,
mm-hmm.
And you're taking real stories in, and suddenly it becomes real to who I am as a person, that I was like, uh-oh.
Wow, yeah.
Maybe that's why my interest was in this originally, is because of that connection I have.
Yeah, that's speaking to your spirit, your soul to some degree. I would suspect, I don't believe in coincidence at all, so I wouldn't be surprised. I always tell people that it's we exist here in a matrix, a physical body, but we're consciousness in motion. I mean, we're multidimensional beings, and with that comes off-world realities and adventures, and obviously other lifetimes of being advanced. Maybe not so advanced, but I suspect we were. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
If you've got a soul and you believe in that,
mm-hmm.
And you believe that you can be reincarnated, then if there is another planet with, intelligent life, and I believe that there is, then why wouldn't you have potentially been a part of those other societies?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, we're still entwined because there's that entanglement thing that goes on. And also, for what my research has taught me in my initiations is soul extensions, which actually permeate in other dimensions and universes. So you can be here and simultaneously existing in another dimension and star system. That's the beauty of it. And that's when you talk about these lights, I'm thinking to myself, well, there must be a correlation between what we are here, the energy associated, and what is the driving force behind those lights? Is it something on this planet or something off-world?
Yeah, I mean, it could be just a very thin layer of dimensional reality there
mm-hmm.
that allows these lights to manifest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that the dimensions are getting closer and closer and merging, and with that comes a parallel bleed-through effect is what they call it. So, I mean, there's so many things that can happen, and I find it very fascinating myself. So I'm very, very happy you put this film out. I really am, and I'm glad it's taking off. I think that's excellent that people are paying attention to it. So it is in the theater, right?
We were in the movie theaters in April, and
mm-hmm.
we were in about the top 20 markets.
Great.
And we did really well. And now it's on video on demand. So if you have a cable system or satellite, you can pop it right on there on your VOD,
nice.
Your on demand system. And it's also on iTunes and Amazon, and we have this terrific player on my site called Yekra. You can watch it directly on alienabductionfilm.com or right there.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, that's working with technology.
Yeah,
you're everywhere.
It's great. You can go direct to your fan base. There's mm-hmm. no need to have a middleman be between you and the people you're connecting to.
I agree. And what do you think about theaters these days? Do you think that the theater itself is dying out and people are moving more in the direction you're using?
We did our release, which was called Day and Date Theatrical and Video on Demand. So we released the movie in theaters and on video on demand the same exact time.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that it was hugely successful. And the theater experience is something that no one will go away from. I mean, you talk about the recession hitting and things like that. Well, it was very much proven that during the recession, people might not buy a piece of jewelry. People might not go on vacation, but they will still, on a Friday night and Saturday night, take their family to the movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, for $15, you could still have a pretty nice night out.
Yeah. Especially if it's a nicer theater, too. That's always kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite theater, I don't know if you've have them in Colorado, probably not, but they're called the Alamo Draft House.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it's great. You sit down, they feed you in the theater, and you get drinks and watch a movie.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a good night out for sure. No, I agree with you. Sometimes it's just not the same unless you have a big screen when you're watching a film like that.
Yeah. I mean, I love it.
That's awesome.
Cool. As much as I can possibly go to the movies, I do.
Well, that's good. I still need to see Godzilla, and I haven't even gotten to see that. I did want to see Godzilla.
I have not seen it myself. So
haven't? Okay. I know that's kind of strange, but I used to love Godzilla when I was a kid. So
I love Godzilla. I need to go see it.
Those are the good old days. But anyways, on another note here, but insofar as the abductees goes, and I just wanted to ask one more question about that. Was there a specific sex or age group that they were being abducted into? I mean, did you notice a difference or a pattern with male or female?
Oftentimes the abductions seem to be men.
Okay.
But I did have 3 or 4 women who told me their stories as well. But the majority of whom were men.
That's interesting. What age group was that?
All ages. It was from 12 years old to 60, 70.
I find that very interesting. I always look for patterns. That's why I don't know if you were looking for a pattern or not.
I was, but I didn't really see a clear pattern. I mean, maybe it'll come out later as I meet more people who claim they've been abducted.
Right. And when you have these experiences, say you go out there and you're back now in California, do you have any bleed-through effects, or do you feel anything energetically that's kind of tracked you back to your place?
My entire life is different, so I have to say yes.
So I don't want to say you're haunted, but you know what I mean.
I don't feel like I'm haunted. I feel like I have a grounding mentally and physically that I didn't have before.
Excellent.
Is that normal to say? I don't know.
It sounds like
how I feel.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been anchored from the experience itself. Maybe it was something that you really needed to participate with energetically.
I think so.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. I definitely want to get out there at this point. After hearing you, I'm like, I've got to go check it out because I'm very much into that sort of thing. So I was going to ask you about the communication. Now, you said the cell phones wouldn't work. What about so obviously, were there radio signals used at all between the research teams and the anomaly? No?
Yeah, I mean, we used walkie-talkies on set in order to communicate, and they barely worked.
Okay.
And they were like high range, police level communicators. Like we were deep in the mountains, so we had to use this stuff, and we had a real hard time.
Did you take any meters out there to measure the electromagnetics or electromagnetic field or anything?
I didn't, but Joshua Warren did.
Okay.
And anytime the lights were seen, there were massive spikes.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. And I was going to ask you, did you guys camp out there, or you were obviously filming, so did you get a chance to camp?
I have camped there before, but we didn't do it on this trip.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Camping out there is gorgeous.
I was going to say.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
Very cool. Well, I've heard also that there's stories about Bigfoot. What's your take on all that out there?
Yes, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
That's very interesting. So well, obviously you haven't witnessed one, or have you? Have you?
I know I have not witnessed a Bigfoot.
Okay. Yeah.
I wish.
I was really interested on that. And what is your impression of the Bigfoot?
There's too many people who have seen it to look past it.
Yeah. I haven't encountered one. I'm always wondering if it's just kind of like a hybrid wild animal or something.
At the bottom of the ocean, there's a fish that was just discovered recently that we thought didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens constantly to us. Oh, we've never seen it. We had never seen a live, a giant squid.
Mm-hmm.
We'd never seen it before. Maybe it didn't exist. Well, recently a Japanese fishing boat actually caught one. So I think it's the same thing with Bigfoot. It's very possible that they're all over the world.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There's a lot that's hidden and kind of hidden in plain sight sometimes.
Yeah. I have a very open mind. I think that Now I do. I didn't initially, but I do now. After seeing the Brown Mountain Lights, I don't think I can deny much.
Right. Yeah, I think it's an awakening on so many different levels when you start participating or witnessing something like that.
Yeah.
Changes the whole dynamic of what we're doing on this planet and the experiences in general. I wish more people would encounter that. So you have in the film, is it live footage or is it simulated footage?
It is. It's simulated, but it's all from the a POV. So it's
Okay.
all from the handheld camera of an 11-year-old autistic kid whose family is on vacation camping in the Brown Mountain Lights area.
Wow, that's amazing. And is that part based on a true story?
It is. It is. I met with a psychologist who had a patient, an autistic patient, 11-year-old kid, who stopped communicating with anybody. Mm-hmm. And his parents brought him in, and the doctor gave him one of those handheld flip cameras, just as an experiment. Mm-hmm. And within about a week, he started making videos. And somehow he was able to filter out all the input he was getting from everything around him and just focus on that little screen. And he started speaking again.
Oh, wow.
He then used that flip camera as almost a security blanket. And everywhere he went, he videotaped.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was what this story is, that's where I got the concept from.
Mm-hmm.
A movie like Cloverfield, who also have that point of view handheld camera found footage thing. Mm-hmm. If I saw Godzilla running towards me, I'd throw the camera down.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't film?
No, I don't think I would. But this is our vehicle in this movie to excuse me, I had a hiccup there. It's our vehicle to say this autism and his security blanket of this camera is the reason why he continues to film, even when the craziest things are happening. And believe me, you see a lot in this movie. We don't just hide it till the very end. It is full on there.
Mm-hmm. And how long is the film?
It's about 85 minutes.
Well, that's a good amount of time. That's great. Yeah, it's not too long then. It's not too short, not too long. Yeah, that's excellent. Sometimes these films that are like 3 or 4 hours, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, and we also don't use a lot of CG at all.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's good too. And that's almost overkill. It almost like does a disservice to a legitimate sci-fi.
Yeah, I was always a fan of, the first Star Wars rather than the Jar Jar Binks era.
Yeah, I agree.
I always love practical things. Mm-hmm. And it's, when you can film things practically, it looks real.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I encourage everybody to take a good look at your film. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen it yet, I must confess, but I am going to check it out. And I'll be haunting you with emails afterwards.
Excellent. I'll tell you a quick behind the scenes story.
Cool.
Before we go into a break here, but we actually there's a scene in the film where the camera is actually sucked up into space. Mm-hmm. And you think, like, how did we end up doing that? We physically launched a weather balloon into low Earth orbit with a camera strapped to it and got the curvature of the Earth and actual space.
Oh, nice.
It's really cool.
That sounds awesome.
Then we had to go and recover it.
Oh, who went after that?
Myself, my director of photography, and about 20 other people, because we lost the first 2 balloons we launched.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it wasn't a success right off the bat.
What happened to those balloons? Do you know?
One of them sitting in the middle of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee, on the Tennessee-North Carolina border. And I have offered, and I will again, a $1,000 reward to anyone that could find it.
Oh, what color is it?
It's giant orange, and it's apparently hard to miss, but we missed it.
A UFO. Someone will find it.
Mm-hmm. I hope so. One day, like 10 years from now, I'll get a call.
So funny.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we're going to head for a break. I can't even speak right now. We're going to head for a break real quick. We'll be right back. Everybody stay tuned. Dark Matter Radio Network. Welcome back, everybody, to Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm Solaris BlueRaven. I'm here with my special guest, Matty Beckerman. We're talking about the film Alien Abduction. And Matty, you with me?
I'm here.
All right. All righty. Well, we were talking about some of your missing. I don't want to call it a weather balloon, but I guess we'll call it that, right? So hopefully
it is a weather balloon. Actually.
So hopefully we'll hunt that one down. Google Earth it, real time though. For sure.
I need to put the last known coordinates up. I went out there with a helicopter. I went out there with 2 Rangers, and could not find this camera.
Oh wow. Well, maybe somebody's already picked it up.
Very well could have happened.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, you have all the great footage, so that part's good. Anyway, so what else are you working on right now?
I've got a great story about a group of kids who head out with video cameras to try to capture ghosts. And what they stumble upon is proof that Santa Claus is real.
Well, that's interesting.
It's really fun.
So do you want to elaborate on this, or?
Yeah, every legend is based on some sort of reality. Mm-hmm. Every major legend has a truth behind it. And this is really the legend of Saint Nicholas.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, well, it's fun. I don't want to give too much away.
Okay. Well, now that you've given us a teaser, so when I think of Santa Claus, I'm thinking about the moon. That was one of the code words they used, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken. So never mind. I'm in a lunar orbit now.
Oh, cool. Well, that's great. Well, tell me about it. I don't know.
Well, I don't have enough information to really elaborate on it other than the fact that was one of the code words they used to use. And I believe one of the astronauts used to use that word for UFOs, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
So, yeah. So I'll have to get more data on that and send it your way. But when you said Santa Claus, I was like, really?
Uh-huh. It's a shocker a little bit, to go from what I'm doing to this. But
oh yeah,
I've got a really cool backstory of what the real stories are.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Insofar as what?
The real legend and where it really comes from and how it evolved from Christmas, which is really a solemn occasion of the death of Jesus Christ. And how does a jolly fat man in a red suit giving presents out have anything to do with that? And the real storyline behind it and why is suddenly a holiday of death surrounded by joy and light and good nature. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's because it's been twisted and changed.
Well, I'm not surprised. Yeah, a lot of those, a lot of the old pagan holidays were actually converted into the Christian holiday.
Yes.
So you have a lot of that going on too. It's an inside out, upside down world. I always tell everybody, you just hold on for the ride because anything can happen here on this earth.
Mm-hmm. It's just taking real legend and turning it on its head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when is that coming out?
I'm working on that right now. We're going to shoot it in November, December.
Excellent.
And hopefully get it done by next Christmas.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, make sure you let us know about that one.
I will.
Talk about that for sure. So you are into the spirits and the paranormal now. Have you had a lot of encounters with the spirit world throughout your life?
My grandmother could automatic write. Mm-hmm. And it was always fascinating to see it firsthand, where she would sit down and hold a pen or pencil, and her hand would just go away writing. And people would come visit her, and she'd sit down with them, and she'd write from their loved ones who had passed. Mm-hmm. And I guess a lot of that had rubbed off on me. Mm-hmm. And my parents met each other teaching transcendental meditation with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Nice. Wow.
So I guess I do have a little bit of that in me.
Are you a love child?
I suppose I am.
That's great.
But I really didn't connect to any of that until I was a little older.
Right. Well, it sounds like it definitely was in your family. So did you know your grandmother?
Oh yeah, she's
Okay,
still.
so you did. Okay, I didn't get to know mine. She died when I was 2 years old. But she was another one too. She was clairvoyant and did a lot of dowsing for oil and actually made people rich, finding oil for people.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish you had that ability because we
Well,
should go hike my
I
new house I just bought and
I
see if
don't I don't talk about it, but yes, I do have very good abilities. If you want me to go out there with my dowsing rods, and yes, I have them.
awesome.
Yeah, but
Find some oil on my land.
oh, wouldn't that be nice, huh? Hopefully, you own the mineral rights and all that stuff too, right?
I
Don't let them.
don't know.
Look into that.
I'm gonna do that first
Oh
before
yeah.
looking for it.
You definitely should do that. Well, that sounds really interesting. So they obviously, with all this psychic ability and all this automatic writing now, it sounds like she would have had a connection to UFOs.
You know, I never really broached that topic with her. It was always more of, you know, more of that spiritual connection rather than the extraterrestrial one.
Right. Yeah. That's really interesting. I think if we had accessed our grandparents, or not our grandparents, but our ancient ancestors, we would find out a lot of information pertaining to the mystical realms and things that we would normally not even pay attention to from day to day.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
It seems like we've lost a lot through the generations. And I can't say, I don't know if I can blame that on the technology or not, but it seems to me that's why I love when people keep record of their family history. And not just the birth, but actually a diary of things that they were or they did, and try to keep some kind of a benchmark or time capsule.
Yeah. I mean, I have a huge family from New Orleans,
Nice.
and the family history is just filled with amazing stories and incredible experiences. All of which we have these big family reunions. We have like 300 or 400 people show up.
Awesome.
And I'm just so happy to have that New Orleans culture in me.
Oh yeah, that's like Voodoo Central too, isn't it?
Yeah. I went to college. I went to Tulane, which is in New Orleans, and that's a haunted city, in and out. It's a spooky place, and I just enjoy it.
Right, but it's not like a negative. It seems to me like some people get weirded out on that, but at the same time, for me, it'd be like a really nice place to go visit. But for some people, they get creeped out.
Oh, there's an energy there that's definitely dark.
Is it?
Yeah, there's some darkness there.
Like
there's also some great stuff there too, but it's a sinful, debaucherous place.
Right. So how would you identify the dark energy? What does it feel like?
It feels like you have a hole inside of you that you need to fill with, things like alcohol, drugs, that's the darkness. That's like and when you're in New Orleans or a place like Las Vegas, or you get that kind of darkness there.
Right. Yeah, I think it's what you're describing almost sounds like disembodied spirits. That those which need to attach onto physical life forms in order to fuel themselves because they want to live through people as vehicles, as hosts. So.
Yeah, New Orleans has a lot of that voodoo.
Wow. Well, I think there's a little voodoo in everybody, but it's usually pretty good. Let's hope, right?
Yeah, and the opposite side of things is what is in North Carolina. There's a light and a good nature to it. Some people do not have that experience, and my movie shows the other side of that.
Right. Yeah, it seemed like it had. Well, just looking at the trailer, it seemed to me like there was it was a lot more. I don't want to say negative, but yeah, a little bit more. Not unless.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horror
positive.
film. It's a scary movie. It's not. It's not like a lighthearted thing, but North Carolina in general, there's an amazing vibe there.
That's another place I just haven't visited. It's on my map though.
Yeah,
to go visit for certain.
It's not unlike where you live right now in Colorado.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's got a really good energy there.
That's good. I think it fluctuates now and then, but insofar as these global anomalies go, now since you've tied into the Brown Mountain with the anomalies, are you planning on filming elsewhere?
I had an offer to go to China and actually do the movie in Chinese.
Wow.
And I'm really debating doing this because I think it would be go and do local interviews around this one mountain range where people have also seen this lights for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike hundreds of years, it's thousands of years there.
Wow.
They have a much older culture than we do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And going and digging in there. I think I'm going to try and make that happen.
I was going to say, if the opportunity comes forth, I would definitely look into that. It sounds very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And where else have they had these anomalies that you think are more of a parallel to what you've experienced at the Brown Mountain?
Australia has the Min lights,
mm-hmm.
Which date back, to the Aboriginal, and it's very similar. It's lights that appear in the same location consistently,
mm-hmm.
and I haven't figured out yet if there are abduction stories around it, but Australia is ripe with UFO sightings.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, everywhere in the world is, let's just be honest, it's all over the place.
It is, but there seem to be certain hot spots insofar as locations go. Now, once again, you have a group of spiritual beings like the Aboriginal tribes, of course, connected in with the dream time and everything else. So I'm wondering if that's part of the attraction of these areas where these anomalies are, because then you had the Native Americans with the other one.
Yeah, there's a spiritual connection to this planet that we're on.
Mm-hmm, I agree.
That clearly is manifesting itself in these specific areas and vortexes that energy surrounds.
I agree. Yeah, if you got everybody synced up at once into a higher level of consciousness, I bet we could really create some incredible realities.
Oh, for sure.
None of this drama would exist if people were vibrating on a higher level.
I agree.
Well, that stuff would just kind of fade to black, which would be kind of nice, wouldn't it?
It would be terrific. I mean, there's also a place called, Hostel, which are the Hostel lights in Norway.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And scientists go out there, they set up their cameras, and these lights appear in the sky constantly. It's not like a random thing. People see them all the time there.
Right. And I'm still wondering if it's more of a parallel bleed-through effect, or if it is exactly what these people have been experiencing at Brown Mountain, where they're being taken or something is connecting in with them. So once again, is it under intelligent control, or is it just a visual, just like a holographic array system?
I want to do the research and really dig in.
Yeah, because I think there's a difference. And I think that we have a lot of different types of anomalies right now across the board. So some are more hardcore, like what you just filmed. And then there are others that are more, they almost seem like, I don't want to say Project Bluebeam, but they seem to me like they're simulated or are not necessarily real, almost holographic. So at least, that's what some of my research has kind of, showed me that direction a little bit. So I think that there's a mix around here and just kind of have to use discernment.
Yeah. And I also think it depends on the person. If you personally can manifest, and you're able to connect, it makes a big difference as to who is seeing this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I know Joshua also, he was in Puerto Rico, wasn't he, doing some anomaly research out there? Yeah,
he's got a whole research team in Puerto Rico to kind of go through the island there.
Right.
And I think he's got even a tour group.
That's great. And so were you thinking about maybe collaborating and doing a film on that or no?
Joshua and I are collaborating on a couple things right now, and I don't think I'm at liberty to get into it without his permission. But we made friends through the process of making this movie, and he's just a wealth of information. Oh yeah, I've heard him before. He's awesome. Yep, definitely. He goes from the paranormal to quantum physics and all sorts of other universal concepts very easily. Yeah, without a doubt. So that's pretty neat. So are you working on screenplays right now that you can talk about? Yeah. The Ghost Detectives is one of them. I'm working on another project that specifically deals with reincarnation.
Nice.
And the connection to past lives through hypnosis therapy. Okay, that sounds like a parallel of your experience, yeah? It is. That's the reason why I'm doing it. I had this experience where, throughout my life, I had this pain in my neck, which since I was 5, 6 years old, I remember getting it. My parents took me to the hospital, and they said, "Oh, it's just a muscle spasm," or another doctor would say, "There's nothing wrong with him; it's all mental," or it would be every 6 months or so I would get this horrible pain, and I was regressed a few months ago. I was talking to you about that. And one of the past lives I got into, I woke up and I was on a battlefield with an arrow in my neck. Right where the pain has always been my whole life. And I was dying. And I felt the whole process. And what I was able to do is remove that arrow from the back of my neck. And I have not had the pain at all since.
Wow. So that's almost like spontaneous healing.
It was. And I think it was just realizing, I think we all carry scars and wounds from our traumatic moments throughout our past lives that don't necessarily leave our bodies and stay with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's trauma at the cellular level usually, but it does get activated, or sometimes it needs to be cleared. And it definitely sounds like you cleared that out, which is wonderful. And you're not the first person I've heard that's had situations where they've been able to heal from another timeline, from a past life during a regression.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
So I got, I'm fascinated by it. So, I'm starting off this story that I'm working on with my story, really, and digging in from that direction. And then there's an amazing story of a 3-year-old kid in Israel who part of a village there, and I can't remember the name of the religion, but it's in northern Israel on the Syrian border. It's not Judaism, it's not Christianity, but it's a religion there that they do believe in reincarnation. And this 3-year-old kid he comes to his parents and he says, "I'm in the wrong village. I don't belong in this village. I was born in this other village." And they take him there, because they do actually believe this. And when a child starts talking about his experiences in a past life, the elders of this community take it seriously. And instead of just dismissing the kid, which is what we do here in our culture, they take him to where he claimed he was from. And this little 3-year-old kid, he says, "That was my house right there."
Wow. And
he was born with a birthmark across his forehead. A big red birthmark. And he says, "That was my house. And that was my neighbor." And he walks right up to the neighbor, and in front of the village elders and everybody, he says, "You killed me." And he said his name, and the members of the village that he claimed he was from said, yes, there was a man by that name who disappeared 4 years ago. We just thought maybe, in that part of the world, people do go missing. It is a war-torn area. And he says to the elders, "I can prove it. I'll show you where my body is buried." This is from a 3-year-old. So the village elders take him seriously, and the neighbor is denying that this happened. He takes them right to this field, and underneath a big pile of a rock wall is the body of this man.
Oh, wow.
Who had been hit across the forehead with an axe.
My goodness.
Which is where the birthmark comes in.
Okay.
And he then says, "I can show you where the murder weapon is." And he takes the village directly to the weapon. And at that point, they fingerprint it, and the neighbor confesses.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's like amazing. Are you going to put that in your film?
This is a true story.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have license to do such a thing, and it's
yeah.
But I would like to, and I'm actually going to contact the people that this happened to and see if I can use some of that.
Right. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that we do have cellular memory.
Yeah, and then the reincarnation thing also goes back to the connection with the alien side of our lives, the extraterrestrial incarnations that we experienced off planet.
Right.
So I think you've got a whole nother level. I mean, the way I see this script coming is probably a reoccurring television series where you have this hypnotic regressionist who meets a new patient each week, and that's how we do it.
Oh yeah, that sounds really good, actually.
Yeah.
Would you make that more of a real-time, real-life situation, or more, I don't want to say fantasy, but how would you create that?
I haven't put enough thought into that yet. I don't think I'd make it like a found footage reality show or anything like that. Yeah. I think I would do it as it's a story, like a real, plot-driven storyline.
Right. Well, it's really interesting. I mean, considering we are incarnating on and off world and off planet, can you imagine all the personalities that we can download from our other, I don't want to call them alters, but other personalities from other universes and star systems? And then, of course, that gives a whole different arena to this illusion we're existing on. So, man, you opened up a big Pandora's box there.
I think so. And no one's done this.
No, I mean, it's really interesting because everything is, I don't want to say it's all watered down in mainstream, but sometimes, everything kind of repeats itself and there's nothing new. There's no new blood, no new energy. And so I like what you're doing because you're putting a different, more of a galactic spin on things, which I like. That's really nice.
It's going to be fun to do that one. I mean, it's going to be a tough sell to get the mainstream kind of media to focus on something like this. But all it takes is a big star to kind of step in front of me, and that'll happen. I'm telling you, this always happens with me. It's like I focus on a project, and suddenly the universe opens up, and everything comes to me.
Yep, that's the way it works. That's the universe accommodates your picture of reality, as they say, and that is very true, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I'll come back to you in when I've got that done. And we could talk about how we opened it up right here.
Oh, cool. I'm so excited. You better. That would be totally cool. I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah. Well, I can guarantee that probably in your psyche you have a lot of different things spinning simultaneously that you'll probably be spitting out in the next few years. So we'll be keeping a good eye on you. And that's really nice. But it's funny how, what do you think it is about mainstream that they just don't want to approach anything on a more sincere level when it comes to reincarnation?
It's a lot of skepticism. I mean,
or is it fear?
Yeah, it's fear, it's skepticism, and it's also, the Inquisition of, the Spanish Inquisition and the religious Inquisition to call anything dealing with reincarnation as heresy.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's what happened in our European roots. We used to all have a reincarnation basis for life. In the European ancestry that most of us carry, and that changed when the Bible kind of altered. Actually, I shouldn't say the Bible. People altered the teachings of biblical proportions to use for power.
Right.
And their way was right. And no other way could possibly be right.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, I always say man creates God in his own image and does some devious things with that image sometimes.
Yeah.
Right down to censoring the future of his own race, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's a power thing. The priests and the papacy used it as a control mechanism for the masses.
Yeah, and I think that's falling apart now. And that's why I like the anomaly things that are happening across the board. I mean, there's no disputing that. And they're going to have to come to terms with multidimensional consciousness and also the fact that we are star beings. We are encased in a matrix here, but we are descendants of our star ancestors. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a higher consciousness and an awakeness that most of this planet is experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's funny. It's real black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are really heading towards that and embracing it, and then the people that aren't are taking the opposite direction and heading to complete darkness.
I agree. Yeah, it's a polarization almost.
Yeah,
it's
a
really
big
strange.
polarization. Look what's happening in Iraq right now, like the things that are going on in the Middle East and in all in the name of religion.
Right. Yeah, in the name of their quote unquote God. Yeah. They do interesting things in the name of their God, so let me tell you. So, but I see all that breaking down. I mean, I think this is what's happening before our eyes, is that we're seeing this almost implosion here on this world, and then we're moving to higher levels of consciousness. And with that comes a new identity insofar as our DNA structure goes. And I think that's also part of these anomalies we're experiencing and the interaction we're getting with them. That's my own take anyway.
Yeah.
I think that it's altering us through higher levels. And if you're able to ride that energetic, which apparently you're able to do, some people were afraid. I mean, you even mentioned it over there at Brown Mountain, but others can hold that light. They can run the energy for it. So that tells me that they're calibrated to go to other dimensional spaces of consciousness.
I agree completely. And did you think we'd be getting into this type of conversation?
No, but on my show, anything can go anywhere, but no, it's great. Yeah. It's wonderful talking with you, and I'm glad you're here tonight, and I want to thank you again. And also, if people want to get a hold of you, once again, let's give them the website information or how they can contact you for anything.
Yeah, it's mattybeckerman.com is my personal website. And please, feel free to hit the contact form there, and I always respond to people. And then I've got alienabductionfilm.com, which is where the movie's base website is.
Awesome.
And we get a ton of hits through there.
Cool.
We've been, I think, like top 10 on iTunes for almost 3 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the movie's doing phenomenal.
That's wonderful.
I'm so happy about it because it was a real low budget independent movie that just got some legs behind it.
Right. Well, that's what I love about it. When you get those low budget films, like look at Star Wars, the first Star Wars.
There you go, man.
That's what I love about that. The guy was just like, maybe he did, but did he ever think it was going to get that big?
These guys, they manifest it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm doing the same.
Yeah, it's magic.
Not that I'm anywhere near George Lucas or any of those guys, but you manifest your reality around you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, it's always about the storytelling too, and I think there was a lot of truth to his storyline actually. When the more I look at the storyline, with good and evil.
Yeah, the force. You got that energy force that connects everything. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're dealing with from day to day. Although I do feel like we have a frequency fence that interferes and runs interference, and that could be part of the underground.
Yeah, it's that physical reality that you live in that takes you out of that higher consciousness.
Yep.
And when you experience things physically, you're less present to anything else around you.
I agree. Yeah, everybody's being distracted by something, and hopefully the distraction's a positive distraction, but usually it's not, and it takes away from their life force or their direction and on their path sometimes.
We practice escapism in our lives, whether it's alcohol, smoking cigarettes, watching a movie, even as escapism. We practice that, keeping our minds focused on other things other than inward thought.
Right.
And escapism could be video games. Escapism could be, a book you're reading. But that takes you from that, thought process of higher thought into focusing on the physical directly around you.
Right. And also that mirror where, you're discussing going into the inner self and looking at one's own self versus the exterior world. I think that's very important that people take a check and look in on that. But I think some people are maybe a little bit afraid to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
And it can be a mysterious place and a multidimensional space of consciousness, and a lot of people I don't think are prepared to go there.
Yeah.
That's my take anyway. So the feedback you're getting on your website, is it good? I mean, are they asking you questions? Are you receiving information or connecting with contactees, or how's that going?
Constantly.
Yeah.
Contactees write me all the time.
Oh, wow.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I think because maybe they hear me on radio shows like this, or and they say, oh, maybe he's somebody that will actually listen to our story and not criticize me for it. And I try to do that. I embrace it.
Yes.
And I never try to judge people.
Right. I think it's really important that you're taking that direction, because they do get ridiculed, and I feel really bad for a lot of contactees and abductees, and I can tell you my own story and scenarios, but I'll tell you, it's really hard for them to begin with to come forward with the information, and once they do, people start to ridicule them, so it's very difficult, and it's good that you're there as a support link, someone who's, even if you're just neutral, but someone who's not going to sit there and make fun of them. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I'm not even neutral. I feel like I'm on their side.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. And I think the more information you get down the road, obviously, the more you realize that it's based on truth. And we're dealing with a multidimensional multiverse, in any way you want to describe it. But that's what we're dealing with here. And once we start getting the bigger picture, it's kind of a no-brainer, really.
Look, anytime you can start a conversation, even if people, are just watching the film for one reason, and they end up getting converted to another. Anytime you can start a conversation and build the idea and the concept, it's great.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. So what's really interesting about your past life on the battlefield? Do you know what battlefield that was?
Yes, I was in Europe, and I was a Roman soldier, and I was surrounded with my brother and my sister, who were both dead with me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That's really incredible. They say that the souls travel in groups, and usually sometimes your family is part of that.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me at all. And they all play different roles when they incarnate back on here, depending on what they need to learn. It's really complex when you think about it.
Yeah, and I was in life after life on a battlefield.
Interesting.
And constantly a warrior.
I was going to say, what sign are you?
I'm Pisces. I don't
Really?
know.
You're the opposite. You're the peacemaker now. So you must have been an Aries before.
I guess so.
That's great. Well, it's good that you're coming out of the battle zone and you're becoming more spiritual. That's what it sounds like to me, anyway, if I had to guess. And
yeah, I guess that was this lifetime needed to bring me out of that.
Yeah, get out of the warrior mode and become more spiritual and more enlightened. And it seems like that's exactly what's happening for you. And Pisces are very sensitive and psychic, by the way. Edgar Casey was a Pisces. Edgar Casey, if I can spit it out right. But yeah. So
I got a little psychic in me. I don't know if I'm really totally in tune with it, but I definitely have something there.
I think your radar tells you a lot, especially if you're filming over there at the Brown Mountain. So definitely something going on.
Yeah, I'm bringing something to me.
Absolutely,
all good energy.
Yeah, and also you're awakening other people into tuning into that area as well, for good or bad. I mean, at least they're tuning into it. But how did you get involved in the film industry?
I was. Wow, this is a little bit of a long story, but I was in a band. I played guitar in high school, and I got into college, and I couldn't really stay in the band anymore. So I told the guy that said, I feel like I'm missing out. Can I put out the record? And I started this little record label in my college dorm room. And the record label, we ended up selling a lot of records. The band was called the Dillinger Escape Plan.
Nice.
They still tour today. They're still pretty big. They'll play Coachella, and they'll tour with like Nine Inch Nails and Metallica. Very heavy hard rock stuff. I started this record label that suddenly grew and grew, and I sold it to a large German multinational, and I took a job doing soundtracks for film and TV.
Awesome.
I was the head of this record label doing soundtracks, and we did every movie from we did about 40 films, and it was Jackass to Charlotte's Web.
Wow.
Like a big range of movies. And I really met like all the writers and directors and producers working at that company. And I said to myself and to my wife, who is my partner and producer, I said, honey, I think I can do this. I think I can make movies independently. And she supported me. And so we quit our jobs. And I started raising money for a film fund. in order to independently make movies, the way I had independently started a record label in my college dorm room.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
That's the shortest version of this story.
Oh, I think it's great. So has your wife experienced a lot of the anomalies too?
She's like, what's really funny is that she's so open, and I wasn't at all. Mm-hmm. She would like go to. She's like, Matty, I have this qigong healer I heard about. I really want to go to it, but it's like 7 a.m. and it's an hour and a half away. I was like, so why are you telling me this? She's like, well, you need to come with me because I don't want to drive there alone. So she'd like drag me there. And I just sit there and like be with her because she's the best person ever. And the Qigong master, this has literally happened to us. The Qigong master sat there and did a big scan on her, and she's like, "You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you." And then she's like, "Oh my God, I just drove an hour, and she's not telling me anything." And she's like, "But you need to come sit here."
Oh, that's funny.
And she just starts like going nuts on me.
That's great.
And Cathy, who's my wife, she's always saying like, I go and do these things and you hog the spotlight. I'm like, I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't mean to.
She's like an angel on your shoulder. Isn't it interesting how people can be a catalyst for you? It's almost like they're guides to your life.
Yeah, she is my catalyst for sure.
It's amazing. That's
Absolutely
wonderful.
Catalyst.
Oh, that's really funny.
She's my partner. She's my producer and my partner for everything. And the reason why I can do any of this stuff is because my wife is so awesome.
I think it's wonderful. And it's nice that you work together and you're doing this productive work instead of having to deal with something you're not, you wouldn't be happy with. So that's huge.
It's a dream. I mean, I can't believe I wake up every day and I say, oh my God, I'm a director. Cool. How cool.
Awesome. A good one at that. So is there any film that you'd like to produce that you have not yet produced?
I mean, there's a million of them.
Yeah.
It's constant. I constantly have ideas and I'm writing them down and writing scripts for them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really big. And then is about, as I spit it out again, is it about selling the scripts? Because most of the time what I found is that a lot of people just can't seem to get their scripts sold out there. Or I guess when you do independent film, it's a lot easier to just do your own thing and not worry about that.
Yeah, I started in the record business, the music side of things from the bottom up, mm-hmm. where I put out a little record and we tried to make it and built up and I really made it like $1 I spent looked like $1,000, like with just hard work. And I took that same approach with the film side of things. Mm-hmm. And not relying on the major companies in order to get this stuff out there. Doing it from a DIY, do-it-yourself, grassroots mentality.
Mm-hmm. Makes such a difference.
It is. It does. And when you do it that way, you can control your own destiny.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's why I'm really glad that your film's doing very well. That's nice.
Everything we did was independent. We had no studio backers. But it was financed from friends and family. Mm-hmm. We sold the rights around the world.
Wow!
It's coming out in Australia and Japan and the UK and the Middle East, and it just came out in Dubai this week.
Oh wow!
In Singapore the week before.
That's great.
Yeah, it's just awesome to watch this whole world get, exposed to this.
Yeah, it's something to celebrate without a doubt.
Yeah, needless to say, I'm having a very good time.
Oh, I'm happy for you, both of you. That's wonderful. So are you going to produce any educational documentaries?
I did a documentary I was working on in New Orleans about the Preservation Hall. Which is, pretty far from, science fiction and paranormal. But Preservation Hall is an amazing music venue that has been in New Orleans since I don't even remember how late it goes back, but The same family has run it, and it's just a mecca for jazz musicians. Very, very cool spot.
Oh, yeah.
But I did a whole documentary on that.
Well, that sounds great. And what about educational, like something else pertaining to, I don't know, more historical beyond that?
I haven't really gotten into that, but I'm sure I could.
I was just thinking of other kinds of documentaries for more historical benchmarks across the board, since seems like you're really in, you accentuate in certain areas. That's my take anyway. So the film area in California, what is the industry like right now? Is it suffering? It seems to me like it goes up and down. How is the mainstream film industry doing right now in California?
You know, everything's changed. Everything's a big tent pole. So there are no movies in the mid-range anymore. It's either you're doing Transformers at $250 million, which is just another franchise, or you're making movies completely outside the Hollywood system.
Right.
And there is no middle ground.
Wow.
And they're making a lot less films in Hollywood because the budgets that are needed, are massive.
Right. Yeah, and you have to get permits to film everywhere.
It's
well, that can add up.
Oh, it's massively expensive. I don't think it should be that much to make a film. I don't think you need a $200 million movie.
Good grief.
There was a great article that Spielberg wrote that these big budget movies will eventually destroy the film business. Because all it takes is a couple of them to bomb to completely destroy the studio's profitability.
Right. Yep.
And this is coming from, one of the, icons of our generation who's saying this. Right. Who's made the big $200 million movies.
Exactly. Well, most of it seems like it's all special effects anyways, if you ask me. A lot of these films.
There's a lot of it.
It's like too busy with no storyline.
Yeah. I mean, I like the superhero movies and that type of stuff. Like, I totally dig that stuff.
Yeah.
But I walked out of Transformers. I thought it was terrible.
Really? I saw like the first one. I haven't been to the theater in a while, but that was the most recent one, huh?
It's just all action and no story. Exactly what you're talking about.
Like, see, that's too busy for me. It's just, I agree. It has to have some kind of depth to it.
I was always a fan. My movie does not have violence or nudity or cursing or anything like that in it. It's it's a thriller, but you really get the sense of more of like a Hitchcock type story where you don't see the gore or the blood, but sometimes the sound that you hear will influence you more than anything.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's the kind of film I like, actually. Yeah, it makes you think a little bit more and it tunes you in.
Yeah, there's no need to see the graphic violence and that type of stuff.
I agree. It's I would call it a poor role model for a lot of people, especially the young ones. But, so where are they making films these days? What country are they going to?
Here in the U.S., they're making a lot of movies, but it's no longer in L.A. Los Angeles is no longer a place where they make movies, and it's really based on there's a tax incentive structure that exists in places like Louisiana. And Michigan, and where the state of Louisiana will give a filmmaker 30% of the entire budget of the movie in order to shoot there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of an incentive, isn't it?
Yeah, and and all the production has pretty much left California because of that. Like North Carolina has a tax rebate structure. We were able to get 25% of the budget of our film covered by the state of North Carolina.
Oh, that's excellent.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a better way of making a movie.
Right. It sounds like it was a little more relaxing, too, to film out there opposed to doing, like, city films.
I wouldn't say relaxing because it was intense.
Yeah?
Like, it was... because we had to import a lot of crew from bigger cities, and we were in the midst of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and there were some pretty pretty redneck, backwoods, scary areas that
Really?
we were working around.
Oh, gosh. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Well, you know what? It sounds like a fun experience nonetheless.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So what do you think the fascination is with people and aliens and UFOs and ghosts in general? Do you think it's just about reflecting on who we are in other realms and universes, or what do you think the take is on that?
I used to think it was just because I thought it was a cool concept, but I think we are connected on a solar level, and that's why we're so fascinated with science fiction and aliens and extraterrestrials in space, because we are children of the galaxy.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah, I think science fiction is very, very close to truth. There's that thin line between the reality of what's really happened or happening versus fantasy.
Yeah, look at Arthur C. Clarke. I mean, he predicted and designed the first satellites.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so many of his designs have become reality. And there's this great program called Prophets of Science Fiction on the Science Channel, talking about scientific inventions that science fiction has led the way to.
Oh, yeah. Are you thinking about writing any books on science fiction or anything like that?
I have a few things that I'm already in the midst of working on.
Are you?
Yeah.
Cool. Are you going to use a pen name?
No. Hey, why bother?
I was going to say I wouldn't. Yeah. Excellent. Well, good. Yeah. Very good. So are you actually writing now, or is it something that's on the back burner?
I typically go through this process where I'll write up to a point, and then my ADD must kick in, and I drop it for something else. And I have like 15 scripts that I have that way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But, a few of them which I finished, like this next project we're going to shoot. But eventually I'll finish all of them.
Oh, yeah. Just make a nice little checklist and go right down it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So, I keep thinking about those directed energy weapons. I don't know if you're familiar with the mysterious Dyatlov Pass.
It's Dyatlov Pass in Russia, of course.
I was thinking to myself, because that was kind of mysterious too, but of course it was a little more gruesome insofar as the way they were taken out. But that seemed like a directed energy weapon to me.
For sure. I mean, that is it's the Ural Mountains,
right? Yep, that's it. Yeah,
in Russia. Yeah, I mean that's I was working with my editor, who also did a movie called Devil's Pass, which was about the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, initially they were calling it Dyatlov Pass, and they had to rename it because no one knew what that was. But that happens often.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well, that was pretty interesting. But when you described those anomalies over there, at the Brown Mountain, and then these guys were seeing some kind of lights from a distance that were chasing. I think they were chasing them down. I could be mistaken, but it just seemed like there was a little bit of a thread of similar experience, not necessarily gruesome part, but it seems like there was something there with directed energy weapons.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'll just have to look into that
loss
further.
of time also.
Right, yeah, the missing time is part of it. What I think we got back to the point where we were talking about the militarized version of technology and how they'll probably take whatever they can and try to create some kind of a weapon system from it. So that was my hit, I guess, is what I was tuning into, was that they're probably looking at that.
Yeah, if the Brown Mountain Lights are, in fact, a plasma-based source, then the military could absolutely try to weaponize that. And that's probably the reason why there is such a big military presence there. Yeah,
I would say if it's under intelligent control, just hopefully they don't hijack that signal and then try to play their little war games on it. Now, the colors of these lights, are they, what color are they? Are they transparent? Are they, what exactly are people looking at? What color?
Red, and there's white lights as well.
Okay, and white. Okay, that's interesting. But nothing translucent or anything like that?
They do say there is a translucency to them. The people that see them really up close say that they've actually seen a being inside of them.
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that I've heard several times.
Is that like a little gray?
Yeah, is what they what they describe.
Wow.
It's which could be, this is how they travel.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. That maybe it's just like a little pod that they travel around in.
Yeah, it could be like a little dimensional portal that they use in order to like their flying carpet.
Wow, that's really interesting. I want one.
Me too.
Solves all of our energy issues.
Sign me up.
That's right. So has anybody established any type of communication through type of signals or codes or any type of encrypted Morse codes or flashes?
You're not the first person to ask me that.
Uh-huh.
And I never have a good answer for it because some people say they have, and I haven't seen it firsthand, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay, I was just curious. Yeah, it just strikes me as if it's under intelligent control, then there has to be a form of communication. So that's what I'm looking at anyway. What about telepathy? Anybody experience any? I think we talked about that, though. They didn't receive any type of communication?
Well, yes. The first person who told me about this said that he had received blueprints for an aircraft. And he spent most of his life trying to create that craft.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. What happened?
Yeah. People just think he's crazy.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, a poor guy. I mean, I always thought he was crazy, to be honest, and that was my own kind of, I guess, my own insecurity shining through. Mm-hmm. But I don't anymore.
Wow. Well, people can come across as being a little bit eccentric, and especially if they're tuned into higher dimensional frequencies. I don't have to tell you this, but they can definitely appear as a little bit different. So
I'm sure I appear different to a lot of people.
I know I do too, but my wheels spin really fast, and I know I can tell you. No, never mind, we won't talk about it right now. But we're getting ready to wrap this up pretty soon. Here, we've got a few minutes to go, and I do want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Matty. What a pleasure it's been to talk with you tonight about your film and everything else that's going on in your orbit.
Oh, thank you so much. It was nice to purge all this from me.
Oh, yeah. It felt great. It just felt like a really nice conversation / interview. And once again, let's give everybody where they can get in touch with you and how they can view that film.
MattyBeckerman.com is my website. And AlienAbductionFilm.com is where you can watch the movie. Excellent.
I'm sure they'll be watching it for sure. Is there anything else I haven't mentioned that you'd like to close with?
We've talked about so much that we could talk another 4 hours if you'd like.
Oh, well, I don't know. Where's Keith? He's on his second martini right now. No, I was kidding. So anyway, here. Well, I do want to thank you again. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show here. And stay with us next week. Actually, I don't know who my guest is next week. Oh, my goodness. But anyway, stay tuned for the Mallard Report. We're coming up next. And yes, it's been a relaxing day, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show. And thank you again, Matty, for everything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's been great talking to you. And I think we can pretty much wrap it out of here, Keith. If he's ready to roll. Oh, he's got 2 minutes.
Oh.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes left here. So within the 2 minutes, let's talk about something paranormal. Any good ghost stories that you can run by me in less than 2 minutes? Any hauntings at your new residence?
Any good ghost stories? Well,
how's the energy in your new home?
The energy in my new house is kind of crazy because there was actually a murder directly next door to my house. What do you mean?
See, I didn't know that, did I?
No.
Very interesting. Well,
we went in there and cleared a lot of that. I had a friend come and that helped.
Excellent.
It was pretty wild though.
Wow. Well, on that note, we'll leave it on a higher vibratory level here, but I do want to thank you again, Matty. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight. See you next week.